Good morning, friends. I'm Chris. I'm from Transformation Nation Yoga and Wellness, and welcome to our Sunrise Yin practice. Today, I'm going to lead you through a fire and earth sequence. So, we're going to be working on lengthening the connective tissues to promote the flow of energy along the front plane of the body, so primarily stomach and spleen meridians. What I think you'll need to be safe to enjoy and to get the most out of your practice today are a mat, or for this practice today, if you just had a comfortable carpeted area, that would be just fine. One or two blankets, you're going to need one for sure, but I'd like you to have a second one if you have it available. A bolster, if you don't have a bolster, you could use a couch cushion, that makes a really good substitute, and one or two yoga blocks. So pause your recording, roll out your mat, set up your props, and when you're ready, press play and I'll meet you on your mat for our sunrise yin practice. All right, I'll have you start in a seated position. We're going to start with a meditation. So find a stable, sustainable seat with a long, straight spine. Maybe a cleansing breath to start. Draw in a life-affirming, dignified inhale. Then as you exhale, open your mouth, make our ha sound. You can have your eyes closed down with this, or you can have them open with a soft gaze. But I'm going to ask you to trace an imaginary line of energy in tandem with your breath. And that line of energy will start on your upper lip. So exhale out all your breath. And then as you inhale, trace that line of energy up the nose, the center of the brow, over the top, down the back, the crown of the head, down the back of the head, all the way down the spinal column to the tailbone. And then as you exhale, start to draw that line of energy up through the pelvic floor, past the belly button, the sternum, the heart, up through the throat to the upper lip. Inhale up the front of the head, down along the whole back line of the body. And then exhale as that line of energy comes up along the front plane of the body, starting at the pelvic floor, coming all the way up to the upper lip. Inhale, up along the head, down the back line of the body. Exhale, trace that line of energy along the front plane of your body. And as you exhale, maybe visualize that line of energy as a zipper, and you're zipping a jacket up the front line of your body. Continue tracing that line of energy in tandem with your own breath. And as you continue to trace that line of energy in tandem with your breath, just check in and notice if that line of energy has any specific qualities. And if it has none, that's okay. But for example, does it have a color? And if so, what's the color? Does it have a brightness or a dullness? What's the thickness? Is it really, really razor thin? Or is it really wide? And the next time that line of energy comes to your upper lip, find an apparent pause. Gently blink your eyes open. And then, if you would, make your way onto your back. And our first yin shape of our practice this morning is going to be Nautilus pose. So use good body mechanics in these transitions. Place the soles of your feet on the earth with a generous bend in your knees. Wrap your right knee over your left. Walk your hips over to the right. Lift both knees as if you were trying to touch yourself in the chin, and then bring your left hand to your right shin, just below the knee. Start to traction and guide that right knee down towards your left shoulder. And check and see if you've got engagement anywhere where you don't need it. So you'll definitely need to engage that left arm. But for example, feet can be sleepy. Or if you notice you're tensing up, I'm pretty tender here this morning. If you're tending up in the deep six lateral hip rotators of your right hip, can you release those? Soften there. Looking for a threshold between discomfort and pain. That threshold between 4 and 6 of sensation on a scale from 0 to 10. We're going to transition to the other side. Release your right shin, lower your feet down to the earth, unwind your legs. Eagle legs, this time left knee over your right, walk your hips over to your left, lift the knees up towards your chin, and then right hand to your left shin just below the knee. Guide your left knee down towards your right shoulder. So what I had in mind with our fire and earth sequence today is just setting ourselves up for some higher level thinking than maybe what most of us experience on a typical day-to-day basis. So part of that is going to involve, I think, noticing what's the quality of our habitual thinking and just checking in and seeing if we can notice what are the thoughts that pop up on a routine basis, what are the impulses that arise on a routine basis, and noticing those with kindness and curiosity rather than judgment or shame. And part of it is just staying in the present moment as much as we can. Like, so noticing the tendency of the mind to drift to other places and then finding an anchor to this present moment. So right now, my deep six lateral hip rotators in my left hip, I'm really feeling the top of the pull at the top of the femur. Right? It's a great anchor to my present moment experience. What are the impulses that pull us away from that? Seated meditation practice is another great place to start to notice, check in and notice what are the impulses? What are my habitual thoughts? What are the patterns of thinking for me routinely? So, for example, I'm learning in my morning seated meditation to slide my cell phone away from me so it's out of reach. So I have to really work if I need to get it. because otherwise the thoughts that pop up are, I forgot to email this person. I committed to do this. I better take care of this now so I don't forget to do it. Or I posted something on Facebook that I think is really funny and I just wonder what other people are thinking. Who liked it? Did anybody comment on it? Maybe I should check that now, right? And when those impulses come up again, keep noticing those with kindness, noticing them with curiosity, and then coming back to our anchor, to that present moment experience. Release your nautilus pose. You can unwind your legs. Use good body mechanics. Make your way into a tabletop position. Shoulders floating over wrists, hips floating over knees. And we're going to get into dragon. So step your right leg forward, right foot maybe to the outside of your right hand. You could even take that right hand back behind the right foot and slide that right heel further forward. Maybe tuck your toes under your left foot, walk your left knee further back behind you. I'm going to choose hands on blocks at the highest height. See if you can feel for a release as your hips fall forward toward that right heel. Other options, you could come forward onto your hands, your blocks to the inside of the right thigh. And I'll cue for the option of a twisted dragon here in a little bit as well. So that higher level thinking that I mentioned, it's a little different than the present moment awareness, right? But I think we can't get there without the mindfulness and the attentiveness to our present moment first. And I think present moment awareness, if I had that most of the time, would be much higher level thinking than what's habitual for me. So these may be baby steps. But anytime that we can attend to what's the present moment for me right now, and what's pulling me away from that? And if you find tools, when we find tools that help us cue into that, I think it's useful to use them. All right, check in with your body. Notice your current level of sensation. And if you'd like to change sensation, one option is left hand on your mat, right hand on your right thigh. Start pressing into your right hand. Open your heart up to the right in a twisted dragon. Or you could fold all the way down on the inside of that right thigh. I'm going to choose the twisted dragon for today. So another tool for me that really helps me notice impulses, really specific impulses, is fasting. And there's two things involved with this for me. So my goal is intermittent fasting, um, like 16 and 8, 16-hour fast in between meals, and then an 8-hour feeding period at least 5 days a week. And twice a week, my goal right now is an OMAD, one meal a day. What happens for me when I do this, I find that at the end of that 16 or 20 or 24-hour period, or however long it's been since I've eaten, my mind is really sharp. It's really clear. And a lot of the distractions um, that the food, the digestion and processing of the food, especially foods that I know are not good for me, being free of those is really nice. But the other thing that I notice is how often I pull toward food for reasons other than nutrition. So if I find myself opening up the door of the pantry or the door of the refrigerator, just checking in and asking, okay, what's happening right now in my mind? What's happening in my emotional body right now? And what is it that I actually need if I know I'm not hungry? If you chose Twisted Dragon, come back into center and then start Straightening that right leg, draw the hips back in line, and then right knee back to meet the left, back into tabletop. Maybe finding a counter pose. So I'm going to come up onto the ball of my left foot back behind me. And just rock back and forth a little bit. But whatever movements feel organic and healing for you, find those here. And then we'll change sides. Step your left foot forward to the outside of your left hand. Maybe scoot that left heel forward. Maybe walk your right knee back behind you. Let your hips settle down toward the earth. Maybe hands on blocks. Maybe your hands down on the earth. Maybe coming down onto forearms on the inside of that left thigh. So in Next Level Human, this week we're going to be working on the sit in silence habit. So this is a meditation or breathwork habit. And what I find is that the higher level thinking, for me, meditation helps unlock that. Right, but I also find it's more common than I would like to, than my meditation practice is sort of phoned in. And I finish my 10 or 20 or 25-minute sit, and at some points it's a little unsatisfying, and I realize I really didn't. I sat there, I did sit, but I really wasn't opening myself up to a higher level of consciousness and thinking. So I was daydreaming or fantasizing or stuck somewhere, ruminating. But when I get that higher level of consciousness that comes from the meditation, it feels pretty amazing, even if it's just for part of that period that I was sitting. And the other thing that I've noticed is those times where I didn't exactly do it, what I would think to myself that the judgmental, shitty part of my brain would call low quality meditation. When I do that, I still present a better version of myself to the world than on the days where I do nothing, where I don't do that seated meditation. All right, friend, check in with your body. Notice your current level of sensation. An opportunity to lower further on the inside of that left thigh, or bring your right hand down to the mat, left hand on your left thigh. Open your heart up to the left, twisted dragon. Check in for muscular engagement in your lower body. See if you can release your hips more toward that left heel. With respect to meditation as a path to that higher level of thinking, that higher level of consciousness, one of the obstacles that I see in my practice and I hear from other people is a sort of nagging fear of, am I doing it right? Right, this nagging question. And that's one of the things that I've come around to is even on the days where I'm not sure that I did it right, when I do it, the version of Chris that the world gets is kinder and more composed and more patient and basically a happier person. So it's worth doing even on the days where I don't feel like I'm doing my best work. I come back into center, start to straighten that left leg, put some slack in the hips, come back into tabletop. And whatever counter movement is constructive, organic, and healing, take the time to give yourself that. And then find any resting shape on your belly. So for today, I'm going to choose half frog with my arms goal posted to the side, my gaze to the right, and my right knee lifted up in the general direction of my right elbow. Right, start to lift yourself back up. If you chose half frog, bring your right knee back down in line with your left. Walk your elbows under your shoulders for Sphinx pose. Maybe slide a block at the highest height in between your wrists. Lengthen the legs long first, and then soften everything from your lower back to the tips of your toes. Whichever direction the ankles roll, if any, is great. Maybe flip the palms up toward the stars. And maybe even slump. So I'd like your shoulders floating over your elbows, but anything else that you can release, including the forehead and the neck in between the shoulders, you can let those go. Check in for gripping. See if you're holding on anywhere. Can you soften your belly more? Or your glutes, or your forehead, your neck? Check in with your body. Note your current level of sensation and where it falls on that threshold between discomfort and pain. And if you've opened up some space, your body wants more, transition into seal pose. Palms down, fingers out wide, maybe walking the heels of your hands back and towards your waist. And then soften again. So a couple of key culprits here, the shoulders and the shoulder blades, the glutes. Check for gripping, and then see if you can release that and let that go. Soften the belly again. you transition from Sphinx to Seal, come back into Sphinx, flip your block to the medium height. We're going to take Broken Branch. So slide your left hand forward, create a big generous space under your left elbow, thread your right arm under your chest, palm facing the sky, fingers of your right hand walking further over to the left. Thread your left arm over your right. Walk, walk, walk the fingers of each hand out in opposite directions. Check in with your body first, and if you're at a 4 to a 6 right here, you're already home. No need to change anything. But if your body wants more sensation, tuck your toes under your feet, rock the crown of your head forward, and then release your forehead down to the block. Check in for gripping. Gripping in the jaw, gripping in the shoulders, gripping in the glutes. Check in for emotional gripping too. What's your emotional response to this shape? And if you notice anything, see if you can notice it with curiosity and kindness. And then come back to that most provocative anchor to your present moment experience over and over. We're going to start to transition to the other side. So if you rock the crown of your head forward, tuck your toes under your feet, walk your heels back behind you, unwind your arms, and then to change sides, slide your right hand forward, left arm wraps under your chest, right arm wraps over your left. Walk, walk, walk the fingers out in opposite directions. Both palms face the sky. And stay right here or tuck your toes under your feet. Rock the crown of your head forward and then soften everything down toward the earth. we're going to start the transition to the other side. Tuck your toes under your feet. Walk your heels back behind you. Unwind your arm. Slide your block off to the side. Lower your heart down to the earth. And then bring your hands under your shoulders. Press up onto your knees. We're going to take snake and rat. So you can fold your blanket up to whatever width is good for your belly. Often a quarter fold of a half blanket is a really nice place to start. My body likes a little bit more sensation. So I'll go a little bit more narrow and then roll the blanket from one end to the other. Right, for a wider belly roll, if you have the top and the bottom of the cylinder pointing out to the hip points, that'll probably be for the best. For a narrower roll, you could invert it and see what that feels like. Place your belly button right about in the center of that blanket. Find a forearm plank. Toes are tucked to start. Weight is on the forearms. Soften your glutes. Drop your hips down toward the earth. Remembering that we're looking for that range of sensation from 4 to 6. You could stay right here. I'm feeling my pulse in my belly already. To add sensation, press the top, release the tops of your feet down to the earth. Let your whole lower body soften. And then for even more, go full skydiver. Go post your arms out to the side. Release your forehead or either cheek down onto the mat. If that blanket is pressing into your rib cage, it's too high up in your abdomen. So just rock yourself forward. So we want the blanket pressing up into the soft tissues of the abdomen, not pressing up against bones. So it's not common, but it is possible for people to injure ribs with a belly roll that's too high. We just want to be careful about that. Check in, notice for gripping. Like our broken branch shape that we did a few minutes ago, there's no muscular engagement required once you're set up here. It's a great place to practice. Where are we holding on to muscular tension and engagement where we don't need? And also notice here, what's the tendency of the mind? We'll begin to start the process out of this pose. And there's not one right way to do it, but what I found to be most gentle is reverse the process. Come onto forearms first, tuck your toes, lift your knees up, and remove the belly roll, and then come onto any resting shape on your belly again. So I did half frog before, so I'm just going to do half frog on the other side with my gaze off to the left and my left knee lifted up in the general direction of my left elbow. Right, if you're in that half frog, slide your left knee back down in line with your right. Walk your hands under your shoulders. Lift up, find a tabletop shape. Maybe grab two blocks, and we're going to take a yin camel. So with the blocks, if you choose to use them, I like one between my inner thighs, as close to my pubic bone as I can. You can do this with the tops of your feet pressed into the earth, or tuck the toes. For tucked toes, I like a block in between the feet as well. And then hands on the lower back or the glutes, like hands were in the back pocket of denim jeans. Squeeze your elbows back behind you. Start pressing your hips forward and find a continuous action of pressing the hips forward. Now feel as if there was a string tied to your heart, gently guiding your heart up toward the heavens. And then only if it's okay for your neck, drop the crown of your head back behind you. Continue pressing the hips forward. Continue lifting out of the heart. Continue to tweeze the elbows together behind you. A lot of yang action for a yin pose. It's a pretty fiery yin pose. But think about those energetic channels on the front line of the body opening up as you press your hips forward and lift your heart up. If the crown of your head is dropped back behind you, draw your chin in toward your chest. And then come into stacked joints. Float your head over your shoulders, over your hips. You can release your blocks. Tabletop. And then to counter, just as a reset, we'll do some cat rolling. So on an inhale, drop your belly down toward the earth. Lift your chin, draw your gaze forward. Exhale, press into your hands, press into your shins, shift your gaze maybe to the space between your knees. And continue flowing through this at the cadence and pace of your own breath. And there's no rush, but start to make your way into stillness. And from the tabletop, we're going to set up into frog pose. So for this, I'm going to choose to place a bolster under my heart. So I'll station this roughly in between my hands, so the latter third of the bolster is down below the level of my wrists. Walk your knees out wide, turn your ankles out. Ankles walk out as wide as the knees. Hips, if you can, stay in line with the knees from side to side, and then lower your heart down to the earth or onto your bolster. Remembering that what we're looking for here is opening up the front line of the body. So seeing if you can soften through your belly, soften through your heart, and let those reach down toward the earth. Check in with your body. If your body wants more, you can take your knees and ankles out wider. You can lower your head or your heart closer down toward the earth. As you start to transition out of this, see if you can find a gentle way to come out. So for me, in my book, the most gentle way is for me to rock the crown of my head forward toward the top edge of my mat until my hips slide down to the earth. And I can draw my knees back behind me. And then make your way onto your back. With the soles of your feet on the earth, a generous bend in your knees, tee your arms out to the side. Walk your hips over to the right. Drop your knees over to the left. Leave your gaze, if you would, up toward the stars. If you would like more sensation in the shape, you could straighten your right leg and let gravity draw that big toe edge blade of your right foot closer down toward the earth. We're going to begin the transition to the other side. So first of all, if you've straightened your right leg, put a bend in your right knee and lift your knees back up in the center. Walk your hips over to the left. Drop your knees over to the right. Gaze is toward the ceiling. I mentioned on the other side to add sensation, you could straighten the top leg. I forgot to mention, you could also reach your left hand down, catch the top of your right foot, lower both your whole left shoulder and your whole right hip and leg down onto the earth and cat pulling its tail. And if you wanted, you could do that and straighten that top leg. Notice again the tendency of the mind here, where your habitual places where you get pulled away. Put a bend back in your left leg. If your cat is pulling its tail, release your tail. Draw your knees back up to center. And from there, set yourself up into any final resting shape on your seat, your belly, your back, or your side. Swallow 2 or 3 times just for vagal toning. And then start to take some deeper breaths, feeling your belly and your chest rise and expand more on each inhale. And feeling for more fullness and more completeness on each exhale. If your body's inclined toward movement this morning, you can begin to reanimate your body with any small movements. Maybe starting with the digits, your fingers or your toes. And And if and when your body calls for it, start to go bigger, rotating your hands at the wrists, your feet at the ankles. If you're on your back with a bend in your knees and your feet on the floor, you could drop your knees from side to side, windshield wiper your legs. You might take a full body stretch. And then roll off onto either side. Find a fetal position. Just take 3 or 4 breaths and notice how the full organism of your body responded to this practice this morning. And press yourself up into any seated position. Find any soft eyes that feel good for you. You can do anything that you like with your hands. Thank you so much for allowing me to guide you through your practice this morning. I appreciate your energy, your breath, and your practice. If you're moved to do so, draw your thumbs to the space between your eyebrows. Blessings to you and your family. And that concludes our practice for this morning. Friends, once again, I'm Chris. I'm from Transformation Nation Yoga and Wellness. Thank you so much for joining us for our Sunrise Yin Fire and Earth sequence. You are doing amazing. Just keep going.